Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bar Hugo. Thank you so much for coming. It's great to see you all. We have this lovely night. Thank you to Christina, who has helped us put this all together. Big shout out. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Luck Dugchitra. I'm VP of People at Leapsome. If you don't know what Leapsome is, we're basically everything you need for your people practices, whether it's engagement surveys, OKRs, praising your team, meetings, etc. That's what Leapsome does. If you are curious to learn more, some of our team are here. I'm sure you're going to get our emails. So please stick around for that. But now, without further ado, I am so grateful to announce our speakers here. Sorry, going back and forth. First, we've got Emma Leeds. Emma, I'm going to read a little bit, everybody. Emma Leeds is the founder, CEO, and chief people consultant at People Function with over a decade of experience in people leadership and HR business partnership. She excels at helping startups navigate organizational development. Her work spans companies like the Muse, Museum of Ice Cream, Boxed, Sail Through, Mixed Lab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where she's built and scaled people functions. She's also passionate about guiding founders to create environments where both individuals and businesses thrive. She's got a master's in HR management from NYU, bachelor's in sociology from Hamilton College, and she likes to lead with empathy and strategic insight to empower teams. She's based in Brooklyn and enjoys exploring coffee shops, restaurants, and live performances in her spare time. Welcome, Emma, from People Function.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
And Jill Katz, who is right next to me here, is a dynamic speaker, influencer, strategy coach, everything. She's dedicated to making work people-focused. She's the founder and chief Candor, Courage, and Care officer at Actionable HR. She specializes in transforming workplace culture through honest communication, conflict resolution, and change management. With over 20 years of experience across fashion, retail, tech, media, and banking, Jill is known for her Candor, Courage, and Care trademark feedback model, which fosters open, productive conversation and relationships. She's held HR roles at companies like Macy's, Ann Taylor, Calvin Klein, and she's worked with executives to boost leadership and performance strategies. She's certified in several leadership assessments, and she helps executives understand the power of authentic communication and to lead for better business outcomes. She's a proud mom, wife, Broadway lover, and dog enthusiast. She brings humor to everything if you know her. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you.
And so I think you all know why we're here. We're here to talk about basically how rough it's been out there in the HR world with the current economic climate. So we're super excited to have these two wonderful speakers here with us because I think they bring a really special perspective from both being in-house as well as now supporting a lot of us HR leaders out there. So before we jump into the questions, would love to ask each of you to share a little bit about your journey in terms of coming to where you are now and kind of what keeps you motivated doing the things that you're doing. So maybe Emma, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I worked for about a decade in-house before I started consulting, really focused in tech when I was internal in organizations. I loved the work, and I had found that in my last 3 years of my career, I was at 3 different startups in 3 years, and it was because the leaders of those organizations really didn't understand what they needed to do to be successful in the HR sphere, and really didn't understand what they needed. And so I was coming into places where they thought they needed a certain skill set, they thought they needed something, and they actually, through the process of me being there, realized that that wasn't the case. And so that's when I started consulting, really because I wanted to come into organizations, deliver really clear results, and be able to set organizations up for success, and then they can move on and hire their full-time internal folks. Now that I started consulting in 2019 by myself and then hiring an amazing team, a bunch of which are here tonight, in early 2021. And so we now focus across many areas. We do a lot of fractional HR and hiring work. We do compensation work, DEI&B, and management training. We love that work. I love being external now that I am, and I think it just offers a different perspective. but I have so much empathy and respect for the folks who are leading the charge from in-house, because I think that is, you're building really deep relationships with those leaders, or you can be, and it can really be a lever for change as you move forward through the development. So a little bit about me.
Thank you, and shout out to People Function. And Jill. Yay, sorry.
Thank you, Emma. First of all, I want to start out by saying how important it is for everybody here to take a purple lip gloss. I had the good fortune of attending the Troop HR retreat this past spring. Christina was there. I took a purple lip gloss and it changed my life. It changed my life. So even if this panel flops tonight, I'm suggesting that everyone leave with a round purple lip gloss in your pocket.
Debating running off.
I would go now, get one before they're gone.
We grabbed 4 for
They're the best. They're the best. And Leapsome is the best. So I do want to start off by thanking Jenny and Christina and Luck and the entire Leapsome team for having us here tonight. So thank you. So my story is a lot like Emma's. I spent 25 years doing HR work, which is hard to believe since I'm only 29, but you can do that math anywhere you want. I had the opportunity to do HR work in media, in fashion, in technology. I actually worked for a .com before .coms were .com, so that tells you a little bit about my age. Again, still only 29, but really loved my career in HR. I had the opportunity to lead the function for several companies, sat in CHR roles, sat in the roles that many of you are in, led the teams for organizations of just myself, one person with budgets of nothing, and then very, very large scale HR teams. I loved it. The reason I went out on my own was a little bit different. I got to a point in my life where I was really overdone. I was overworked. I was overwrought. I was overweight. I was really an unhealthy, unhappy person. And nothing in the world mattered more to me than being a mom and being there and being present for my family. And there was one day that I was standing on the corner of 31st Street and 7th Avenue, and I broke out into a very loud, very, very exciting argument with my husband, who is here this evening. Hi, Josh. And he was screaming at me in front of a Dunkin' Donuts. So if you were there and you saw it that night, everything's okay. But he said to me, if you don't go in there and quit that job, I'm going to quit it for you. I just wasn't living the life I wanted to live because I was working till 10 o'clock every night. And so I actually just quit my head of HR job at a very large retailer. I did not have a plan. I did not have a business plan. I just had a really strong passion for changing the world of work. And so I bought a Costco folding table for $49.99. I bought a laptop for $1,500. That was my entire budget. And I set up an office in my bedroom and I started Assemble. And within 18 months, I had my first few clients. I lost 77 pounds. I changed my life. I was there for my children. I brought in my business partner, who was one of my former colleagues and one of my best friends, Jamie Delaney, who is sitting here tonight. She came in and said to me, I think you can double the business. I said to her, I don't know what you're talking about. And fast forward to today, our business, Assemble HR, is going to be turning 7 soon. We have over 50 clients. We're very fortunate to be, so far, knockwood, a relatively successful business. We've got 22 people, including the amazing Kirsten Kalemba, who's here tonight as well. And we get to do the work we love the most, and we get to not do the work that I don't miss. So that's how I ended up here tonight, and I feel so fortunate, and I know what it feels like to be in every seat in this room.
Amazing. Thank you both. So what I think is really interesting about having you both here and having both experiences, and even in talking to some of you here tonight, it was clear that it's a rough world out there right now, right? A lot of us have gone through call it a few years now of layoffs, budget cuts, fighting with leadership turnover. A lot of things are going on that are making it a really rough time. And Jill and I were joking earlier, I'm like, this is a heavy topic. But I think it's hitting all of us in all of these different ways. And so I think just simply put, like, we're all saying it, and the numbers show it. Leapsome just did a workforce trends report where we see, I think it's 69% of HR leaders find this current business context challenging. I think we're all like, yep, that's right. And so wanted to ask you both from the different perspective, like, what should leaders really be focusing on right now? And I will throw it to Emma.
What should leaders be focusing on? I think what's really important for leaders to focus on now is ruthless prioritization. So there are, as an HR leader, I see the picture for what I want an organization to look like. I know where we are today, and I know where it needs to go. I know what the processes need to look like. I know what it needs to look like from an engagement perspective. And I know all of the many tools and systems and projects that it'll take to get us there. And I also know that we can do that in a really robust way. But then I think what this market does is it's like, well, we can't actually do that. We have to really be ruthless about the prioritization of, like, what are the projects that will really drive the business forward? What are the projects that will really take that vision? And if I can only get to 25%, like, what are the most impactful things that I can do? So to me, this market is all about, I have a team that is strapped for resources. I have less money and less budget. What are the things that I can do that are super focused with maybe just me to be able to move the business forward and get to a piece of what that vision is?
Great. And Jill, what do you think?
First of all, ruthless prioritization, yes. I would underscore and highlight in yellow. I think that is amazing and important. And what I would add to that is that what good leaders need more than anything else is a way to lead effectively. And at Assemble, we believe that is with candor, courage, and care. And that is our trademarked leadership model. It is about living a life of transparent feedback. Candor is the what. It is about being direct and open and honest. Courage is the when. It is about giving people feedback in a timely manner so that people are not waiting around feeling the anxiety of the economic environment and wondering what they can be doing better and what they're doing right that they should continue. And care is the why. It's about leading with intention. And when organizations create environments of candor, courage, and care, they literally can transform the ways that people work. Right now, people are feeling so much stress. They are ruthlessly prioritizing. But when you're in environments of ruthless prioritization, what do you feel? You feel fear. You feel loss. You feel stress. And so you want to know, what the heck is going on? What do I need to know? What am I doing right that I should do better? What am I not doing well? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my team? And so living in a world where leaders understand how to change the temperature with feedback, that really, really makes a difference. We had an event this past week at Assemble. We were lucky enough to bring together 25 CEOs. And we asked them in advance, what is keeping you up at night right now? And it was amazing. 86% of the people in the room said to us, this economic environment. So that didn't surprise us. But what was amazing to hear is that 70% of those CEOs, the very next answer was leadership and culture. We put everything out there on the table for them to choose, but the CEOs were telling us how important leadership and culture was to them, which I think is great for us to hear.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think this is great. So what I understand, and I think a lot of people leaders here understand some of these things, and in concept, they all make sense, right? But how do you start? Like, when you're feeling stressed and triggered in these moments, like everything you said, Jill, in terms of, courage, candor, care, talk to people, but it's really hard to do that. How would you suggest people really get into that mindset and then get their leadership teams and their managers on that mindset as well?
I believe so strongly in the conviction and confidence that we need to project as people in HR, talent, people strategy. I have some interesting stats. I'm a notes person, as you can probably tell. I brought a 35,000 page book with me tonight. But we have approximately 60,000 thoughts per day. 95% of those thoughts are on repeat over and over. 75% of those thoughts that we have on repeat are negative. Think about that. Think about how much time we are spending sending ourselves negative messages. Now, if it's our job as people leaders to be influencing the C-suite of our organizations, we really need to focus on our confidence. So how do you start? You start by truly believing in what it is that you're selling in your organization. You start by making business cases that align with the strategy of the business. You start by remembering what will happen if you don't do the things that you want to do. And it makes me think of a LinkedIn post that I saw. I don't know if anybody else saw it this week. There was a woman who posted this incredible thing. She said, I asked for a raise, I didn't get it. I asked for a promotion, I didn't get it. I asked to do a project, I didn't get it. So, what did she do? She quit. And then what happened? Of course, they made her a counteroffer, but she left. It was too late. And so for us to start, we get to go to our partners who are other leaders on the executive team and say, if we don't start now, look at what the risks are. They're much more costly.
I also think when it's look at what the risks are, it's also painting a picture of what is it that we're trying to get to. And then being able to say, okay, if I'm going to have to prioritize the specific projects that we're going to be doing and the specific things that we're going to be focusing on, we could do all of these things and they would get us here. But here are the ways that I want to pare back based on the needs of the business, or not even pare back, but shift and reprioritize or do things in scrappier ways. And in that way, you can really show the business leaders, like, this is how not only am I prioritizing the work that we all know is so important, if we don't do this work, here are the negative outcomes for the business, but here is the way that I can get to the positive outcome as well. I think it's also like piecing those things together.
And I love your idea of pushing back priorities because that takes so much courage.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's something that we just hear all the time from my friends in the industry, from our clients, is that there's just no way that we do not get the best case right now. I think VCs are not giving out the money that they used to be. Companies are not operating in the way that they're used to operating 5 years ago. And so we are not living in a best case scenario. And as HR leaders, being able to say, hey, I know we're not in a best case scenario, so here's what I'm going to do to really be able to support the business and support my team and function.
Really great insights. I think the other aspect of this is just, I like to see a win-win, and in this moment where we have some of these restrictions and budget cuts, what are things that teams can be doing with what they have to kind of make use of this time? Do either of you?
What can teams be doing now? I think this is where there's a couple of things. So I think this is where teams now are, again, focused on the things that are super important, but then also being able to, actually, let me come take a step back. Could you repeat the question, Luck?
Yeah, it was just like, what, in this moment where there isn't as much budget and, like, I guess the noise isn't there, what can teams really focus on to make use of some of this time to
go for it.
come out?
I would say there's 4 things that you could do right now. The first is emphasize employee development. This is a great time to retrench and train. Train. So you can upskill the team. When you think about the fact that we are going to ruthlessly prioritize, there are probably going to be fewer people. And
Yeah.
right now, unfortunately, there's a little bit more time if there's less business. And so it is a great time to train the organization and give people more skills. There's also the opportunity to reskill people, upskill people, train people on other jobs or other tasks so that maybe you don't need to hire in more people when business gets better. The next thing I would suggest is leverage technology. Leapsome is a really good example, and I'm plugging them, no one paid me, but this is a great suggestion of think about the type of technology that you can invest in that is super strategic and can streamline people work and make things smarter and easier. Foster flexibility. This is a very high impact and low cost way to lean in to the employee organization, because we know, how many people here work for Amazon? Okay, good. Amazon just made a decision to bring people back 5 days a week. I can't tell you how many phone calls I've already gotten about, hey, can you please help me find a new job? That's not the way to go. That's my own opinion. That bringing people back and mandating people's schedules is not the right choice. The right choice is to give people choice. And then my last thought on this question is focusing on employee well-being. It's never been more important, especially during such a stressful time. So the opportunity to put in programming, whether it's on inclusion or mental health or physical health, there's so many opportunities out there for us to invest. There's time now, so we can look into it, and these are things that we can all lead.
Yeah. I would also add that I think this is a time where HR really needs to show that they're in deep support of the business and of the business goals. Because I think one of the things that we hear over and over again is that CEOs and founders, when we come forward with projects, they're like, no, I'm focused on doing the thing that we need to do to prove to our investors so that they put in the next bridge round. And so I think this is an opportunity where how is it that HR can take the work that we're doing, but then also intertwine it really with like the core of what the business is doing? And I think that is a thing where you can then, as an HR leader, prove that you are really driving the business forward. There's a project that I'd worked on when I was with MixLab, which is a veterinary and pharmaceutical company, where I built the process for what happens if a pharmacist makes a mistake when making a medication. And at the end of that, the CEO was like, wow, I didn't know that HR could do that. And it's like, yeah, of course HR can do that. Like, that's the thing that was the most important thing to the business right now. It's just a process. It's just people making mistakes. It's not that challenging. But I think it's at a moment when the resources are what they are, the market is what it is, and at a time when HR can be looked at doing things that aren't driving the business forward, do all the things that Jill said, because HR clearly does drive the business forward, but it's also what are the things that I can do to really put myself into the organization in other ways and really serve the business.
What is the process when a pharmacist makes a mistake?
You know how many years ago that was? It was like 4 years ago. There's so many processes that now live over that one in my brain.
Interesting.
But it basically was how to report an error and who finds it. And there's a lot of intricacies there, because if you don't want to feel like a rat and you're ratting someone out, so you actually don't want that to feel like really punitive. You want it to be like a learning opportunity. So there was elements there of like, they actually think that HR was really well, because I was well positioned to do that because I was thinking about all of those things, and you have to think about the reward lever in so many ways there. It's cool.
I think that's really great because it highlights a lot of the different skills that we all bring as leaders. I think what's hard sometimes at many of the companies I've been at recently, it is hard for HR sometimes to step into that business seat. So I think it's really great advice to understand it. What's like a practical way that the HR leader, if they don't have a great CEO like I do that believes in the people function, how do you build that bridge? How do you learn some of the skills that can help you take that seat and like prove the ROI on HR?
I'll start. I think one of them is there are a lot of companies where the CFO will get up in front of the company and share metrics, share information, and I often find that presentation moves very, very quickly. And so what I actually suggest is taking that, really digging in. You don't have to go ask the CFO, find the director of FP&A, work with someone to make sure you're understanding what are the key metrics for the business and how do each of these teams roll in there. Because the key metrics for the business are then the thing that will drive investors paying, which is really the thing that the CEO is thinking about at the end of the day. So if you, as a business leader for HR, you're thinking about the same things the CEO is, you're building trust there, you are able to better prioritize the work that you have for your team based on those needs and understanding in the bigger picture. So I'd say get really close to the finance team, understanding those presentations and taking those opportunities to really dig in and understand more deeply. That's where I would start, at least. What do you think, Jill?
I agree with that, and I would say it's all about relationships. At Assemble, we wear T-shirts to all of our offsites that say it's all about relationships. It's one of our mantras, and the best way, I think, to learn about the business is to interview people in the business. I remember starting a job when I was an HR director at a tech company years ago, and when I started the job, I spent my first 3 weeks interviewing every single person in the company. I had a big yellow legal pad, and I remember going around and I interviewed each person. It took forever.
How many people was that?
It was about 130 people.
Woo.
And it took a long time, but at the end of those interviews, I really understood what every single person did. But more importantly, the real trick and the real secret was that I knew each person and I had the seedling of a relationship. And now I could call any one of those people and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Hey, can we go grab a coffee? And that allowed me to learn more about SQL Server programmers and all kinds of JavaScript and finance, and it made me feel a lot, I don't know if I was, but it made me feel a lot smarter about the business.
I love that. We do, when we enter a new client, we do our best to meet everyone as well. And I think that gives the opportunity because whoever brought us in, the COO, the founder, has an idea of what the priorities are for our team. But then we talk to everyone and we're like, well, founder, here's actually what people are saying, and this is why we think that this priority should be over this one that you said. And so that's something where, when you're building an ROI, we're saying that this is coming directly from your team, and we are now positioning ourselves as like, look, we're building relationships here, and we are, ready to add value to your organization. So I love meeting everyone and understanding because I think you learn so much. And you also learn what the founders or the COO, where their blind sides are and where they are really unable to see and understand.
I think that's really great, and I think it underscores sometimes the things are so basic, right? Like it's all about relationships, building trust, having a conversation. I think what we're also finding is, I have the stat here, 48% of those that we talk to struggle with getting quantifiable data to support their initiatives, right? And both of you, I guess, in the last few years, we've all noticed that the climate has changed dramatically, where there was money pouring in, and then now there's money not coming in. And so it might be good to take a step back also and just what are the budget processes now, and what's changed, and what can we arm our people leaders here with in terms of how do you start presenting that ROI case? What metrics really matter?
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so I think the budget process has changed a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. As I said before, the VC capital market is obviously down, which means that there is less money going to organizations, and when the money does get deployed, the VCs are much closer to it, and they want to make sure that their capital is being deployed thoughtfully. This is not the days of WeWorks where you can, who did they hire for that party? Some
Right.
artist, some rapper. But these are not the days of spending VC capital left and right. These are the days of really thinking about being very thoughtful about G&A spend. There's a VC we work closely with where they were really scrutinizing the entire budget for hiring budget. And so there's much more scrutiny of budget line items, and so I think it is much harder. And so I think there's a couple of things that I think about when my notes are digital. When presenting a business case to really get through and be able to get this money from your finance team. I think one is really doing what us external folks do, which is we can come into an organization and say, here's what we're seeing across clients and what we think is normal. Yes, you might think X amount of money is expensive for this technology or tool. We're actually seeing it's very normal. But internally, you can do that as well. Using benchmarks. Leapsome has the benchmark report. Benefits brokers have benchmark reports. Using those external benchmarks to really be able to make sure that you are bringing in external data. I think another one that can be really helpful is sharing a broad range of options. Being able to say, we can go with option A. So even for open enrollment, you can go with option A, where this is the cost share, and this is how it would play out for employees. Option B, option C, here's why I think option B makes the most sense, but it's your decision, business leader. And they'll often go with your decision or something close to it when you have money options and you're showing the broad range of optionality there. And I think finally, it's really how do you align those business objectives with the HR objectives with the business objectives. So if I'm trying to get budget alignment on an engagement tool, I can carry back and say, well, the last handful of new hires we've had, they've struggled in these ways. Here's why I think this will support in onboarding and making sure that this doesn't happen again in the future and your leaders can focus on other things.
Jill, do you have anything to add there?
The only thing I would speak to is what the metrics are. People often ask me, what are the metrics? I had a client this past week say to me, what metrics will you use to determine if this particular initiative is successful? And I said to this person, you tell me. You tell me. I don't work at your company. And so there are lots of metrics out there. And I took the time when I was working on my notes to throw some of the metrics on a piece of paper, and I'll read the list just so we can all sing a song together. Because there's so many metrics that we like to use in people. But the metric that is most important, I believe, is your culture. What matters in your culture is the metric that you should use. And so is it cost savings, productivity, performance, retention, engagement, unwanted turn, wanted turn, satisfaction, employee satisfaction, outside benchmarking, the use of a SWOT analysis, must-haves, nice-to-haves. I could go on. There's so many metrics, but the metric you should use is the one that matters to your CEO. The metric that you should use is the one that matters to your executive team, of which hopefully you are a part of, or the metrics that matter to your employees or your customers.
Yeah.
Did you get all those, everyone? Take the notes down.
I do think those traditional ones, there's some like engagement and turnover. Turnover specifically, it's such a lagging indicator, and I think when a CEO wants to hear one metric, they often want to hear turnover or engagement. But I think they are so complex because it's a lagging indicator. There's so many compounding impacts and effects that it's just challenging. So I love that list. I want it.
But I have the list. I can email it out.
I think you need to make a song. I think that's the next
Be
thing
careful.
that
I
you must
may, in fact, make a song. I will sing a song. Yeah.
That's the next. That's the after party.
Yeah. No, I think this all makes sense. But to your point about the lagging, like we do engagement surveys. Obviously, we do it. But we are realizing, I just was talking to Jenny yesterday, we just took a survey. We had the feedback. By the time we share it with everybody, something else is different in the world, in the market. And like you need to keep up with what actually really matters. Like what's the point of all of this? I want to get to audience questions if we have any. So one last question, because I think it's so important. How can HR sort of continue to be seen as a leader, right?
I'll take that. I can get really passionate about this. HR, we own our destiny. We own our destiny. We need to stand up tall. We need to love what we do. We need to be thoughtful about the language that we use. My friends, we are not a support function. That
That's
is
it.
not a thing. That is so 1988. That went out with my high-cut jeans that had pleats. Not a thing. We are not a support function. We are leaders. As a matter of fact, there are CEOs today that were in HR. Chanel, their CEO was in HR. MetLife, their CEO was in HR. Dunkin' Donuts, their CEO is in HR. I could go on. We should not be thinking about whether or not our issues belong at the table. We are not there to service anyone. We are not a service organization. We are a critical part of the leadership team. Without people, there are not organizations. And so what we need to do is remember how important the function is that we lead. We need to teach leaders that they own the human resources of their company and stand tall and proud.
Damn.
I know.
That was good.
Damn.
Damn. I am not a support function on a t-shirt.
I am not a support function.
I mean, yeah, that Jill really summed it up. I think to me it is not that we are fighting for a seat at the table, but here are all the reasons why I have one, and I am not serving the business. I am a part of the business, pushing the business forward, and you would really be remiss to not have me in that conversation because I'm a value add, is I think how I would phrase it.
Absolutely. I think that's great. So want to get everyone mixing and stuff, but would love to take any questions from the audience. Does anybody have any? Maybe?
There's someone
Somebody?
back there.
Someone
Yeah,
back there?
with
Okay.
a hand raised.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Molly. Jill, you talked about 70% of the CEOs that they can walk on some sort of retreat or some sort of activity saying that leadership and culture is what kept them up at night. I think I get the culture part. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the leadership part, what was the breakdown there? Was it their own leadership skills? Was it the leadership? Was it the effectiveness of their leaders within the organization? Or was it retention? What was it exactly?
I'm going to repeat the question back as I was instructed to do, and I want to make sure that I got it right. So I believe that you asked the 70% score that we got from the CEOs who came to our event who said that leadership and culture is what is keeping them up at night. The culture piece, you said you got that.
I think.
Okay. But the leadership piece, what was the leadership piece? I will speak to what I believe that it is, and I will also open it up to Jamie in case you have anything to add, because Jamie is the one who, well, first of all, she's smarter than me. Second of all, she has great earrings on tonight. And third of all, she ran the survey. But my belief on leadership was that it was about upskilling the leadership teams below them. And so we had CEOs attending our event, and they were talking about upskilling their own leadership teams, the C-levels that work with them, so that those teams could be ready to fight and win in tough economic times. Is there anything you would add?
I would.
How do I stay up here as business evolves and changes and have the team under me be able to do the same?
Yeah, we see that across teams also, and many of our clients are struggling with that. And I think now specifically, it is really crystallized because they don't have the funds to go out and hire a senior leader who might be $50,000 more than the person who's in-house. And so you have to figure out a way to grow that person. You cannot layer them. You cannot add headcount. And that puts more stress on the CEOs and the founders to figure out what is it that I need to do to get my people to perform to the level that I need them to be able to push the business forward. So good survey.
Yeah. Really great survey. And I was also there because Jill invited me to that event. And I think what was really profound was every leader there said, you have to invest in your people, which is so funny because we're always fighting for budget money to invest in people.
Yeah.
And so it's this funny irony in the world that we have to navigate all the time. So I think it's taking some of these tips and really bringing them to the table, putting those leaders on the hook as well, just to the culture is not just HR's, it belongs to all the leaders. Do we have any other questions? Yes. Right here. We don't have a mic, so if you can speak loudly or come on. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the wonderful answers to these questions. I was attracted to this event because you talk about the ROI of HR. How do you, or do you have any advice for sort of parsing out your impact on a department or a business's improvement when there's so many other factors? Factors being, people turning over, like teams changing, who is actually on a team, or projects, like different projects that you've done when all you really have are lag measures, and maybe data that you've collected along the way, but like how do you parse that out? How do you parse out what you've done to help and like show your impact?
Really great question.
Having a little bit hard time hearing.
Okay, so the question is for when it comes to proving ROI, and correct me if I'm missing stuff, when it comes to proving ROI, how is it that you can show a department head this is my impact when there are so many other factors and issues and challenges at play here, and you've got all of these lagging metrics and indicators? Is that anything else? Did I miss something? Okay, I can start. I think this is one where you're storytelling it very clearly, and you are super honest about, here are the things that we did, here are the things that happened. But I think this to me is really about painting a picture and a story, and having a starting point of this is what it looked like at point zero, and then this is what it looks like now, and here's where we want to get. And what's happened, almost like putting it on a timeline, and here's what's happened in the first half, and here's what I need to do next in order to get to where I want it to go. To me, like this is like a storytelling exercise that you're either doing like in a deck, or kind of like walking through in a timeline. But I think this is where like HR metrics are so imperfect, is because there's not one way to be like, this is the ROI. There's not one way to say like, this is how much it costs to replace a person. There's like so many different things, which is why I think it is, how do you piece all of those things together, layer them on top of each other, and have them make sense to that business leader? To me, like if you can make it make sense, then you've proven the impact. You've proven what it is that you're trying to show. What do you think?
I think that's right. I think that storytelling is exactly right. And something that I would throw out there for us to consider is we are partners with the business. And so it's NYJ to tell the story without the business leader. And so if you're asked to make the business case, that's great. The very first meeting that you have is with that business leader to say, we worked on this initiative together. Let's talk about and write the story about what we did, what worked, and what needed work. If you're sitting by yourself and you're writing that business case, something is wrong.
Yeah. There was a engagement survey that I did it when I was in-house years ago, and the CEO was like, engagement scores are low, I need the HR team to dig in on like what's going on here and why it looks like this. And we looked through all the data, and really what we pulled out is like the sales were tanking, and people didn't have faith in the organization. But he was looking at us, and he was like, what's going on at HR? Why are my people not on board? And that's a very he yelled at us and like ran out of the conference room and slammed the door. But like that's a very adverse relationship. But to Jill's point, you are trying to build a bridge, and you're saying, here are the things we're doing together, here's where we struggled as a business in sales, and here's where we need to kind of be able to get to together to be able to push it forward.
Really great question. Time for one more, and then yes, okay.
Speak loud. So I've been taking notes. You both talked about investing in your people. You talked about the economic climate. I have a question
Economic climate investing.
too. So when it comes to the current economic climate and the diverse needs of the multi-generational workplace, how can companies tailor their reward strategy to not only retain top talent, but also meet the different expectations
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that at all. I'm so sorry. There's noise back here.
Yeah.
So
Basically, when it comes to meeting the expectation of a diverse workforce, what are some strategies you've seen to leverage your rewards to bridge the generational gap?
Yeah, you got it.
diversifying rewards to bridge the generational gap.
Like,
What idea? Yeah.
On a budget, forget it.
What investments? Yeah.
You can't.
All the things.
don't bother.
Yeah.
You can't.
Big question.
Sure, I'm happy. Yes. So there's no easy answer to that question, right? I mean, raise your hand here if you're not grappling with that. Right? I think we're all grappling with that. So there's a lot of research out there. One of the things you might want to do is hire a comp specialist. That's the first thought I have, which is I am not a comp specialist. I'm not a comp expert. So I'm not the best person to answer that question. But one of the things that occurs to me is doing a lot of learning. One of the things I would dive into is learning and training on the multi-generational workforce. We've spent a lot of time at Assemble thinking about multi-generational workforce. I'm not the trainer, I'm not the expert, but understanding how different generations are motivated by different things. And what each person in the organization is motivated by the way, is also something very different. I had a leader when I first started a job once go out to every single person in her organization and ask every person on a chart what motivates you. It was one of the smartest things I ever saw a CHRO do, and I have done it with my teams ever since. So when you get information like that, you come to learn whether it's multi-generational or any of the other diversity metrics that are important in an organization. There are a myriad of things that motivate people and matter to people in their job. Getting that type of information is the first thing, quite frankly, that pops in my mind on how to reward people. So you might learn that there's someone in your organization who cares more about family time, and that goes back to you talking about hybrid, flexible working arrangement. You might find out that other people are motivated by compensation. You might find out that other people are motivated by flexible work arrangements. Some people might be motivated by learning opportunities, and so you might decide you want to invest in learning and development or coaching. And so one of the things I would say is, this sounds simple, but ask, right? Why wouldn't we ask? Taking guesses is like betting. I don't recommend gambling. I mean, that's not a good idea. It's not our job to know. It's our job to ask. And so I think that's the first thing I would suggest. It's a brilliant question, and I think something that we all grapple with.
Yeah. I would add that it's because, again, there's no answer to this one because I think it's really hard, that in that you have multi-generational workforce and you have different people who tend to want different things, you're gonna have to create some kind of like really agile, flexible approach. It could mean that you are, maybe you have a 401k, but you don't have a match. You're doing lots of different things, but you're doing them to like some degree of, if you were going all in on a 401k, maybe it would be like 3% match, something wild. So I think to me, it's like it is a potentially like like spread out your options and like identify lots of different things that you can do on the reward side and go pare it back, and then as you get response and feedback from people, you iterate and you push things forward. So like, okay, all of these things worked, we don't have a lot of participation here, so this is something we're gonna drop off, and we're not gonna, have a gym membership anymore. Instead, we're gonna focus on these things. So I would almost like do a spread approach and then see what the organization's reacting and responding to, and then invest from there. Hopefully as the time, yeah, exactly, and hopefully,
Discovery.
yeah,
Investigation.
and hopefully as time goes on, if you do a lot of things now, and in 5 years the company will have more budget to play with, and you really can invest in those things.
I want to talk to you more about this. It's very, very interesting.
I know, it's great. I'll add another practical point of view here. I think there's so many things you can do, but it's really important, I think, the storytelling of what you do, because it's part of the employer value proposition. What are you offering? So how do you decide? Like, think about your culture, think about what really matters, and try to align some of those things to some principles, because then I think you have shared understanding of what's happening, and it could be a whole myriad of things, and then you build that forecast, that roadmap of like when you can actually get there. I find sometimes employees just need to know you're thinking about it because they think you haven't. And so sharing it out, communicating it, talking about what you're thinking through, what your concerns are, can really help surface kind of what the priorities are. Anyway, sorry, thanks for letting me chime in
I
on the
think
HR
that's
side.
great.
Look, I think it's perfect because to me that is a thing where if your organization needs to really understand what you're thinking, so they're not just like, oh, they don't care about Gen Z. They, they
Boomers.
Yeah.
It's a hard one that I think a lot of us. It's a good one.
Nice big question. I just wanted to leave with one last question to both of you. We often like to end this with like one quick piece of advice, or what's one thing you want people to take away from this conversation?
I would say, for me, it is get close to the business and then focus your priorities there. Because if you're able to do those two things, you'll be able to prove what you need to prove for your ROI.
For me, it's about leading with candor, courage, and care. Start with yourself. Start by being open, honest, direct, timely, caring with the people you work with the business leaders that are your partners, and you can start to change the cultures with places that you work.
Well, I want to thank you.
Ooh, it's good timing. That was like a
Boom!
fireworks.
I want to thank you both for being here. I also want to do a special shout out to the folks that we partnered with at Team Union, People Function, Assemble HR. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you for coming here tonight. Special thanks to Christina, do I see you? Our partnerships and field marketing manager who put this lovely event together. Wanted to also share, if you enjoyed this and enjoyed this conversation, we're having another event November 14th, right here. Hopefully the weather is just as nice, and we're going to be talking about from burnout to boardroom. So another hot topic I think that we're all feeling in some way or another, as Jill expressed from her her whole transformation. Then the other reminder, we did try to do something to help people mix a bit with a bingo game. It's getting late. We're going to read the room and see if you want to do it or not. But we have prizes, and if you win, you can get a prize. We've got 3 prizes. If not, we will probably do a raffle to raffle them off. But we want to thank you all for coming.
Eligible.
And
Not eligible.
thank you so much. Round of applause for our
Thank you.
speakers here.
I didn't, so I
Please enjoy some drinks and food. We're here till 8:30, I think. So have a great time, and I hope to catch up with some of you.